I'm very happy now to welcome Tommaso Pardi with us, who is the director of GERPISA, and he's working very closely also with European trade unions. And we have asked him to look at the regional challenges of the transition of the European automotive industry. And I would be very happy if you could give us a bit of an overview from your angle about the challenges you see. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I'm very happy to be here. I think there are three major challenges that the regions, the automotive regions, are facing. The first one is not new. It was very well known since the beginning, since when we started to set in motion this fast transition towards electromobility, is the fact that even in the best case scenario, where an automotive region is capable of attracting the same amount of capacity for producing battery and electric powertrains that is losing in the internal combustion engine, while the net result will still be thousands of companies closing down and thousands of jobs lost. Simply because for an electric powertrains, you need much less parts, so less companies and much less workers. Now, the problem is made even more tricky because the capacity of companies and the capacity of regions to navigate this transition are not distributed in the same way. There's a very heterogeneous situation. Of course, the small companies are much more exposed than the big ones. And also some regions will attract more investment than others. So that means that the impact of this transition will be unequal and that some regions will be hit much more than others. And this definitely requires a very comprehensive integration, much more than is the case today, of the automotive regions in the just transition framework, because they will definitely need it. Now, another problem is that we expected the battery value chain to appear in Europe very fast. And at the beginning, it looked good. But right now, it's slowing down. Why is slowing down? Precisely at the time when it's accelerating in the United States. But one of the reasons is exactly what there is in the United States and there is not in Europe, which is an industrial policy. Now, an industrial policy like the Inflation Reduction Act is something that articulated the old processes from A, extraction of raw materials, their availability, to Z, the recyclability of these raw materials, making sure that all the efforts go in the same direction. If I think in particular about the battery technology, today there is a lot of volatility. Companies might invest today in a technology that in 5 years will be obsolete, depending on the cost of raw materials, their availability, depending on the development of technologies. So we need to coordinate investment efforts, which is very important, in order to be sure that we are moving in the right direction. So coordinate research in the efforts in research development, in investments, what type of chemistry we want to bet on, what type of batteries, what type of volumes, where do we invest, with which energy. And this is missing right now. Now, the second challenge that I want to talk about is the fact that we don't know what will be the volume of production in 2035. All the scenarios that have been made before the start of the transition to electromobility were based on the idea that more or less we'll be producing the same amount of cars in 2035 that we were producing in 2019. Now, this is less clear. Why? But first of all, already today, we are in a situation in which we are more or less back to normal. The COVID crisis, the shortage of chips have reduced the capacity of producing cars. Now we are more or less back to normal and we are 20% below the 2019 level. And the problem is that the electric car, the average electric car sold in Europe is 30,000 euro more expensive than the average internal combustion engine car that has to be replaced. And of course we can expect this price to go down, but as we move from less internal combustion engine cars to more electric cars, we can expect the average price of the European car to increase. And that will mean a smaller market. And when we see a smaller market, we see overcapacity. And when we see overcapacity, we know that the automotive region will be at the receiving end of the restructuring process required to reduce capacity. So that will further exacerbating the consequences of the electric transition. Now, the third challenge is something that we didn't see coming, at least not so big and not so fast, and is the Chinese challenge. Those who were in Beijing for the auto show some months ago have seen why the Chinese market, which is the most competitive and the biggest electric cars market in the world, is completely dominated by Chinese companies. Companies like BYD, Chery, Geely, and so on. They dominate these markets because they have better products. They have more range, that have more products for the consumers. They are more advanced in battery technologies. They have much more integrated production system in the electric value chain. They have access to cheaper batteries. They have better production conditions. Energy costs are much lower in China. Labor costs are much lower. So it is clear today that if we let these companies in the single market, they will take market share as they were actually doing right now. And I don't think there is an easy solution to these problems. If we raise trade barrier, well, China is one of our biggest trade partners. We export a lot of cars and other products to China. But also, if you want to make 2035 target, we need their cooperation. We need their technology. We need their raw materials. So we need to cooperate with Chinese companies. So we definitely need to set up some kind of agreement, setting up the condition under which Chinese company will export cars to Europe and will invest in Europe. And this is exactly what the Chinese authorities did with European companies 20 years ago, when European companies invested in China. So I think that there is some kind of historical reciprocity that could be at play here. And I believe that, to summarize these three challenges, what we are looking at is a little bit like a tsunami. So we see a wave that is coming, and it's not so far, it doesn't seem very scary. It's just coming slowly to the shore. But if you take together all these different elements, sooner or later the wave will come out. And if we don't set up some alarm in order to be prepared, then it will be too late. So I think that setting up an observatory of the just transition, which is part of the program of the regions, is very important. We need to have very recent data and constant information and transparency, so that the regions which are on the front line of this transition will also be able to provide all the information and centralize this information in order to be sure that we are not missing the wave and that we are ready when it comes. And so I really think that having better informations, better data, up to date on the impact of this transition, of all the solutions that have been brought forward at regional level to deal with it, all the investments and all these dynamics is very important. But also I believe that we need an industrial policy and a direction. We cannot keep following different technology, different solutions. I don't think that the current framework for the electric cars is still a framework that is based on the internal combustion engine car. Basically, it's a framework that is an electrified internal combustion engine cars. We need a dedicated framework for electric cars. Electric cars are different products. It's different technology. They need different solutions. Otherwise, you will never get an affordable electric car. So all these things must be put in place. And I agree with Thomas, this is a very exciting moment. There is so much to do, and so I'm very happy to be part of this discussion.
Thank you, Tommaso. I think you put it really